I went to reach for the button on the side of the bed, and then the next, I remember vaguely falling back. I must have fallen back onto the bed. But the next thing I'm doing is I'm going down a tunnel, a dark tunnel. At this point, I'm not thinking anything apart from, wow, this is different. This is not your average Friday. What's going on? Oh, well, let's go and see what happens. I'm not a religious person. I'm fascinated by religion, but I don't follow any one religion at all. I like to combine them all.
Yeah.
But had I been Christian, that would have been Jesus Christ.
I want to welcome everybody back to another episode of The Soul Inspired. Today, I have Kevin Milsom with me. He is someone who's had a near-death experience, and we're going to also talk about some spiritual experience or experiences he's had. So I want to thank you for coming on the show today, Kevin. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you.
Yeah, I was going to say it's great to have you on, and I get one of the blessings that I have in what I do is I talk to people from all over the world. We can tell pretty quickly based on our accents that we aren't from the same piece of the rock. So
we
right?
are on different sides of the pond.
That's right. That's right. So I generally really go into your life to look at the life of Kevin, to think of the way your life has been. And I think about it can be, I don't know what came first, whether it was a spiritual type experience or whether it was the near-death experience. But if you can think about that moment and then who you were prior to that, can I get a little bit of info of who you were maybe growing up? Just a little info.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's kind of a long story with that. I initially, I guess got into, I guess you could call it the weird stuff, if you want to call it the weird stuff, when I was a child. And I got into it via the paranormal. And basically by growing up in two very old houses in the city of Bristol where I lived and was raised. And these houses were the first one was about 300 years old.
Wow.
And at the age of 7, I became aware that the house was odd because I had an old man who had come up from the cellar. We had a store, we had a grocery store. And I was on the first floor, and this gentleman would come up every night, and he would open my door, and he would come in and sit on my bed and just start talking to me. And I'm 7 and petrified. I'm under the covers. I'm not coming out.
Right.
I don't care if there's oxygen or no oxygen. I was absolutely petrified. I'd not had any interest in anything before, not read ghost books, anything like that. So this came out the blue. And I've got a very logical, analytical mind. And although I told my mother, obviously, and she said, oh, you were just dreaming, you were just dreaming, you were just dreaming. But this went on night after night after night. And I knew I wasn't dreaming. I knew I wasn't dreaming. And so I set the goal then, I guess, at the age of 7, to kind of explore this because I wanted to know what it was. I wasn't just prepared to accept, oh, it could have been a dream. I've got that brain that needs to find out, that very analytical brain. So that began my kind of journey into, I guess, parapsychology. And I think the first thing for me was that I wanted to find out that I wasn't the only one that this happened to. And so I got every book that I could out of bookshops, libraries, and I found out that this was a common thing, that this happened to other people as well. So that's the first thing. There's nothing wrong with me. This happens to other people as well. And then basically, I spent the rest of my life trying to find out what it is, what they are, what does that entail, where does that lead to. And then when I got into my 20s, I wanted to explore spirituality, Joe. And so me and a friend went to various religions, tried various faiths, looking for the answer, I guess, life, the universe, and everything. And we found it in a couple of places, and that began a kind of a journey into spirituality. And I realized that I was kind of finding my own way into spirituality. And I was also lucky at the time, I guess I've been blessed in life to have a lot of personal experiences that can get past my very analytical brain until you're left with the kind of scenario where the brain has to wave the white flag and go, I'm out. I've got nothing on this one.
Right.
I'm done. I've explored every single analytical, logical process. That doesn't make any sense. I'm done. Good luck. And so I've been blessed to have a lot of those. And that, I guess, that formed in early years the belief that that life could continue beyond physical death, because I was having these experiences myself. I was talking to a lot of people who had had these experiences or were having these experiences. I was reading a lot of books on people who had also had those experiences. And I thought, well, there's a ton of evidence here. All right, it might not be proof, but it's certainly evidence that something goes on. And so I had a good kind of, I guess, foundation. So my faith wasn't in doubt. But when I had the NDE, it just kind of took it to another level, I guess you would say. And I guess of all the things I've had, that one was the most transformative, because since coming back, it's been 6 years now, but since coming back, I'm not the same person I was. I'm a totally different person.
Yeah, I think first of all, thanks for sharing the,
Absolutely.
kind of a brief overview of your life up until your NDE, and kind of I got an idea of what's going on. And, to touch on a few quick things, you did mention, you're at a point now where you're kind of talking to other people who've had these experiences, and you're really just kind of putting the puzzle together, right? You're seeing different experiences.
Okay.
And one of the challenges I've always thought about in running this podcast, and as I'm still in the infancy of it, I've only interviewed 20 people, maybe 30 people, NDEs. And so, one thing that I could see happening to quite a few people out there that listen to NDEs is the confusion. You hear so many different variations of experiences. One thing that I would say, though, over the years of me studying it, because I've been studying it for a long time, is even though there is differences within it, if you look deep enough, there's some very common similarities that
Very much.
start to really stick out. And those are the things that I would like people to really focus on. So that was one thing I was going to say. The other thing is, so interesting enough, what you're saying essentially, just so I can reinterpret it, is when you were a young kid, you were having kind of, I don't want to say the word ghostly or spiritual experiences with an entity of some sort. And this was going on for a while. And then you moved on past that, but that probably triggered you to kind of get in touch with this seeking of spirituality as you moved into your 20s. Does it sound accurate?
Yeah, I didn't want to go too deeply into it in my teens, because life was hard back then and life was difficult in different ways. And I thought, I don't need to be exploring this. I was aware enough as a youngster to think, right, I've got the understanding that this stuff happens. I'm quite happy with that, because when that happens to you at 7, the first thing you start thinking is, or that I started thinking was, what's wrong with me? And I wasn't religious at that time, but I was in Sunday school. We had just done Satan in Sunday school, and I thought, uh-oh, I've done something wrong.
Right. Yeah,
I should have worked harder on that English test, because now I've got something in my room and I don't know what it is, and blah, 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 and blah, blah, blah. I don't know what it is, but it scares the out of me. So you go through, and I realized that I was, I'm not really wanting to deal with it. It was enough to know that this happened to other people. So I'm experiencing something that other people, and I was reading books from 1800s. Oh, this happened 150 years ago. Oh my God, this happened in Roman times. So, okay, that's enough for me. So I waited until I was about 21, something like that. And then doors opened into spirituality, and I thought, okay, now it's time to do that. When I was in my teens, I was still interested in this stuff, but I think I gravitated to UFOs or something like that, monsters, and that sort of stuff. Anything that was unexplained, but not particularly too scary or related to poltergeist, ghosts, all that kind of stuff, which I had experienced growing up. Moving objects, disembodied voices, all that kind of stuff, which is a lot to handle when you're in teenage years or in younger years. So I waited till I was older, and then again, I wanted more explanation of it, which I found some of it through spiritualism. I found some of it by researching heavier books, and obviously back then, we didn't have, I'm now in the 1980s, we didn't have the internet, which I would have loved. So I was reduced to the library, and bookshops and everything else. Um, Whereas now, obviously, it would be online. But I'm kind of glad of that in a way, Joe, because as I say, online, as you quite rightly said, there is so much misinformation. And I see this every single day in my life. And some of it upsets me, some of it angers me, because people are coming at this from all angles and all directions. And I see a lot of fear. As I say, I see a lot of fear, and I see a lot of people also, oh, well, I had this experience in 1997, therefore I have all the answers, therefore I'm going to tell you everything, because almost like I'm this godlike being. Or we have people just coming in and, and it's kind of theory after theory after theory. There's so many different angles. The people that, as I say, that I care about, the ones who are in there going, I just lost my mother, brother, father, dog, son, and help. I need some advice. And I think the simpler that we can keep that, and based on personal experiences, without judgment as well, without judgment of that, oh, well, I haven't seen anything again. I haven't seen anything, so therefore it doesn't exist. A very cynical approach. I'm a true skeptic in the true nature of the word, of the Greek word, in that, I'm very open to it, but I need to go and explore it. So if you told me that there was a three-headed dragon in the hall outside my front door, if I was a cynic, I would say, well, that can't be true because those things don't exist. If I was too far the other way, I would go out there expecting there to be something. As a skeptic, I need to go out there and see it for myself. And then I'll believe it. And then so I like to be in the middle of the fulcrum, the middle of the seesaw. And I think if we're there, then we're open-minded and we're open to stimuli. We're open to information without being biased. And bias is the key word here, isn't it? Because once we become biased, then it has to fit into our personal narrative. And that's what I don't like. And I see a lot of that on Facebook, on social media. And I think the simpler that we can keep it and just say, look, this happened to me, blah, blah, blah. That's it. Now you go away and process that. And I think that's how it has to be. Non-judgmental, open, tolerant, and obviously with people like myself that have had a lot of stuff, very empathic. I know what it's like to stay in a haunted house. I know what it's like to be in a house on holiday, which feels like a horror film, where literally you have to leave early because there's stuff moving in the house and people are going up down the stairs and there's this over here and that over there. And I guess I've always been sensitive. And again, you talked about us creative types. And I think there is a sensitivity there. There is a kind of exploratory nature. We see the world maybe in different ways. We might see it in terms more maybe emotionally or something like that. But we would see the world in a different way, say to somebody who was a bank manager or somebody who was, who focused on this. So I think we do see the world in more open ways. We are more sensitive. We are more probably aware and empathic. And I think that also is going to naturally place us in situations where we are going to pick stuff up.
Right.
It's going to happen to us. While somebody with a more closed mind isn't going to see anything. And that's just how stuff is. But in that respect, my favorite stories of all the ones that I research are probably the people who are either atheists or absolute non-believers. Right. And then have an experience and go, uh-oh.
Right, yeah.
I have to change my thinking here.
Sorry, I was just going to say, that's the interesting thing about you is that you had this understanding, and we haven't even touched on the NDE yet, so I'm interested to hear about this, but you had this understanding of things, not an understanding, but you were having experiences. And what I'd like to do is to hear about what happened to you. So you said it was 2018, you said that October the 11th, 2018. Okay. I was having a bit of a midlife crisis. I felt that I wanted to do more with my life. And I realized that I was getting older. I was 55 and I was trying to be 25 again, as you do in midlife crises. I couldn't afford a Harley Davidson. So I thought, right, I need to do something. And when I was younger, I wish I had a natural aptitude for sport. And I never utilized it to its potential. And I thought, I know, I'll be a soccer coach. Because around here, there are a lot of
younger groups of teenagers and younger kids. And there's a lot of development here in soccer, in football. And I thought, oh, yeah, that's what I'll do. I should have done that when 30 years ago, but I'll go and do it now. I chose the hottest day of the year, and I tried to keep up with 17-year-olds. Well, that's never going to be a good result.
Right.
And I became diabetic in 2008. So I was diabetic and have been since now, 16 years. And I was running around and going bright purple and all the rest. And I developed a tiny hole in my right foot, which I didn't even see. My wife saw it on the back of, on the sole of my foot, and said, "You've got a little hole there." And obviously, being aware of the diabetes, went to the doctors, checked it out, gave it time to heal itself. It just didn't heal. Unfortunately, the doctors that I was with neglected the situation. And by the time that they decided that it was worth doing something about it, I was literally dying. I had to be rushed to hospital, and I developed sepsis in my right foot. And I went to hospital and they gave me the x-rays. I've never been in, I've always been stupidly fit, ridiculously fit, up till 55. And I've never stayed in hospital. And I thought I'd go in and they give me an injection or something, and then I get sent home. And I'm starting to see a lot of worried faces. They did the x-ray, and then the faces look even more worried. And then next thing I know, I'm in a hospital bed on a ward. And I don't really know what's going on, because in myself, I feel okay, ish. I had been very ill for a week beforehand. I'd not been eating. I'd been very cold and shivering, drinking a lot and sleeping a lot. And they're now telling me that there's something seriously wrong with my foot. And the x-ray shows that the sepsis had gone deep into the bones, right into the foot. And they said, you need to have an operation. So I went down for an emergency operation on my foot, nearly died on the operating table there because my heart started giving out. And they took away half of my foot. So they scooped out the inside of my foot. So my foot is like a cup. And there's not a lot left in there, apart from a few bones. And then I'm in my hospital bed, and I've got this bandage on, and they keep looking at, and now I've got black going up my leg. And they said, if that goes over the knee, you're toast, because obviously we can't cut you in half. We can cut your knee off, but we can't cut you in half. So we need to go back. The sepsis, we've got rid of some of it, but there's obviously something there. We need to go back and have a look at it. And they kept going up, and they said, I'm sorry, Kevin, your leg's going to have to come off. We have to take your leg off because, as I say, otherwise you are toast. So I talked about it with my wife, and I said, well, it's a no-brainer. I can have a robot leg. I'm not going to live another day if I don't have this amputation. So they set the amputation operation for 9 o'clock the following morning. And I didn't realize, Joe, that when you're in hospital and they think you're going to die, they wake you up every hour because they need to check whether you're still breathing.
Oh my goodness.
So they kept waking me up every time. Jabs, you're in jabs there, and checking this and checking that. Are you still with us? Yes, I'm fine. And they woke me up at 5 o'clock in the morning of the amputation. And they checked my blood pressure, and they checked my sugar levels, my blood, all this kind of stuff. And she said, are you okay? I said, yeah, I'm fine. And then she went away, and I didn't feel very well. And I'd had problems. I said, my heart has stopped on the operating table, and they'd had to bring me back. I didn't feel very well, Joe. I didn't feel very well at all. And I thought, well, there's no point in going back to sleep now. So I'm thinking about my leg, and I'm saying goodbye to my leg, basically, because in 4 hours, the leg is gone. And I'm thinking of all the wonderful times we've had together and everything else and all that. And we're having a tearful goodbye. And I didn't feel very well. I had a pain right here in the heart, in the chest. And I thought, well, being British, I don't like to make a fuss, but something isn't right. And I went to reach for the button on the side of the bed, And then the next, I remember vaguely falling back. I must have fallen back onto the bed. But the next thing I'm doing is I'm going down a tunnel, a dark tunnel. And as I'm going down feet first, and I've got 2 feet, and I'm thinking, oh, it's fixed itself. That was quick. And I'm going feet first at about warp 7, I would say, down this tunnel. There's a light at the end of the tunnel. I don't know how long I was in the tunnel. I would say maybe it felt like seconds, but it was probably longer. And I'm aware that the tunnel's being lit up at certain points. And at this point, I'm not thinking anything apart from, wow, this is different. This is not your average Friday. What's going on? Oh, well, let's go and see what happens. Nothing had occurred to me about the fact that I could have died, but that had not crossed my mind. Mm. I'm also aware that I can think very, very quickly, that I can rationalize very, very quickly, faster than normal. So I'm dealing with all this new stimuli. This is nice, lovely, light, tunnel, dark, foot, lovely. And I come out, Joe, into this amazing room. I would say it was about 30 foot square, something like that. And it is the whitest white I've ever seen. It was a glowing room. It was like the room was a living, breathing thing. The floors are glowing, walls, ceiling, everything is shimmering with light. I'm stood in the middle of this room, kind of looking around again, more stimuli to take in. This is interesting. Wow, that's white. And ahead of me, and slightly to the right, I see 2 people coming through. I see a group of people, but there are 2 people at the front of them. One is running towards me, and the other one is walking towards me. The one who is running towards me is my mother, which is interesting because she'd been dead for 9 years at that point. And when she died, she was literally a vegetable. She couldn't move. She had no brain function, nothing. She couldn't walk. And here she is sprinting towards me like a 9-year-old. Like, okay, there's another stimuli. Interesting. Behind her is my stepfather, who at that stage had been dead for 13 years. And he's walking towards me and nodding and smiling. And behind him are a group of people. I didn't take too much notice. I wish I had. I wish I could go back and have a look. But I felt I knew them. I felt they were connected to me. They were all different shapes and sizes, all races and creeds. But I felt a connection to them. So here comes my mother. And my mother was very vocal in life and was very vocal. And with a big smile upon her face. And she starts talking to me, Joe, about, I guess, heaven, spirit, whatever you want to call it. And she's telling me, oh, it's wonderful. Oh, you wait till you see the flowers. Oh, the animals, the trees. Oh, the colors. You're going to see, oh, it's just so, oh, it's incredible. And she keeps turning to to her husband to get clarification. He's not allowed to have a word in as usual. But he's kind of nodding, and then she goes, isn't it lovely? Anyway, blah, 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 blah. And she's telling me all this stuff, and I realize again that I can process information really quickly. And I'm taking all of this in, and she's talking to me with her mouth, with her voice. And I begin to have a self-aware session. Okay, I'm in a white room. Here's my mother. She's been dead 9 years. Dennis has been dead, 13 years. So there's some guys over there. This white's really white, isn't it? This is incredible. Why am I here? For the first time, it dawns on me, why am I in this room? I begin to get a bit of self-realization. And then a weird thing happens. I begin to, I guess, have what you call an internal review. But just me judging myself or reviewing my life to that point. And also at this point, I'm aware that ahead of me, there's a door built into the wall. Very thin outline, but I'm also aware that that door is a barrier. If I go beyond that, I know that if I go beyond that door, I'm not going back. And I don't know how I know that, but I've got all this stuff coming into my head. So I'm listening to my mother, kind of. I'm taking in every stimuli that I've got around me, which is a lot. And now I'm having a life review. Now I'm processing my entire life, especially the last 30 years of it. Going back to the 80s, say. And I'm thinking, right, okay, I've been married for 30 years or so. I've got a family, I've had employment, I've had jobs, I've had this, I've had that, I've had fun, I've had that, I've had this. And I'm going tick, 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 tick. And then I get down to the creativity. And I can't tick that one because I've let myself down. I've not achieved anything near what I should have 30 books out. I should have 20 CDs out. I should have been, live at Wembley. I should have done this. I should have done that. And I haven't because I've been too scared. I've been too reticent. I've not believed in me enough. And I really start to rip into myself now. Why didn't you do that in 1998? Why didn't you do that in 2006? Why didn't you do that when you were 17? And I'm really beating myself up. My mother finally realizes that I'm away somewhere else. And she says, oh, I knew you wouldn't blinking well listen to me. And I'm like, what? And she said, well, if you won't listen to me, Kevin, listen to him. And I'm thinking, him? Who? Who, him? And this door opens and this gentleman comes through. This wonderful, wonderful gentleman. And I'm not religious, Joe. I'm not a religious person. I'm fascinated by religion, but I don't follow any one religion at all. I like to combine them all.
Yeah.
But had I been Christian, that would have been Jesus Christ. He had he entered the Jesus Christ lookalike contest, he'd be one hands down. He absolutely looked like Jesus of Nazareth or Jesus Christ. But I saw him as a teacher. I knew he was a powerful spiritual teacher, a master soul. That's what I thought, oh, this is a different level. And he came and stood right by me as if to say, what's going on here? Who are you? And his first words to me, and again, these weren't spoken, my mother was speaking verbally. He was speaking mentally. His lips never moved. I could hear his voice in my head. And his first words to me were, why are you here? And my response was, well, that's a very good question. I'd like to know that myself. And he kind of smiled. And he said, no, why are you here? And I said, and I started to offload on him. And I started to I could have done this in 2000. Why didn't I do this? Why didn't I do that? Oh, I've let myself down. I failed myself creatively. I should have done this. I should have written all that, those albums and those songs and written all those books. And he put his hand upon my arm and I calmed down immediately. And I could breathe. And it was like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Slow your pace, slow your pace. There was no judgment. There was only empathy, complete unconditional love and empathy. That was all there was. No judgment. The only judgment was coming from me, Joe. That was it. And I was ripping myself to pieces at that point because I should have done those things. That's why I came down. That's why, that's why I was born. I should have done those things. And I'd walked away from every opportunity because I was too scared, basically. Yeah. Too shy, too scared, too dismissive. And he said, what do you want to do? And my mother is still going on about the flowers and the trees, lover. And I said to him mentally, I don't know what to do. And he said, what do you want to do, Kevin? What do you want to do? And I said, well, I have to go back. I have to do more stuff. I haven't done enough stuff. I'm stood here judging myself, and I haven't done enough stuff. I've let myself down. If I go through that door now, I'm going to have to come back again very quickly to learn 90%. I reckon I've done 10% of the things that I could have done. And that leaves a whopping 90% of stuff that I could have done, should have done, haven't done. And he asked me several times, he said, are you sure? What do you want to do? This is your choice. Yeah. And I said, well, I have to go back. I don't think that pleased my mother. He said, are you absolutely sure? And I said, yes. Next thing, I'm back in my hospital bed, led out looking at the ceiling, and about 15 minutes have passed. And all the pain here is gone in my chest. And I feel different. I feel weird. I feel odd in a nice way. But I feel, I don't know how I feel. I feel lighter. And this is going to sound weird, as if the last stuff wasn't. But around me in the bed, it feels like there's a ring, like a ring donut, and I'm going through the ring bit, the hole in the middle. There's a ring bit around me. And I can only tell you that that is made of healing and unconditional love, unconditional light. And it was so powerful, I start to cry because I can feel this. I've been too unwell to go online, but I realized I had 3.5 hours until my amputation. So I go online on Facebook and I realized that my poor wife had had that horrible phone call. You need to come in, he's fading, he's dropping. We don't think he's going to last much longer. And so she'd had to come into that. But she gone to Facebook and said, look, Kevin's really poorly. It's not looking good. Could you please pray for him? And God bless social media. I had about 2,000 people, agnostics, atheists, Christians, spiritualists, spiritual people, Wiccans, witches, the whole lot, just sending out their energy however they wanted to do it. And that's, I feel, was what that energy was around me in the bed, because it was tangible, it was physical. And I was reading these messages, thousands of messages, and I thought, oh, wow, that's what this is what love feels like. This is what spiritual healing feels like. And I felt different. And as I felt this, a little voice in my head, well, I couldn't tell you who it was, could have been my mother, could have been somebody else, said, it's going to be okay. And I knew it would. And now I'm not worried about anything. I'm not worried about losing a leg. I'm not worried about the aftercare. I'm not worried about anything at all. So I've got 3 hours now to sit there and wait for the operation. And the black on my leg the previous night was up to my shin. Me and my wife were watching it going up my leg, millimeter by millimeter. It was scary stuff, Joe.
Yeah.
So at 9 o'clock, in comes the surgeon who saved my life, God bless him. And he said, all right, Kev, are you okay? And he said, are you up for this? Because he knew that I was a straight talker, and so was he. And he knew I didn't want him to blow smoke up me. You know, this is what's going to happen. Your leg's coming off, but you will live. Yeah, I can. Yeah, I can process that. And he came in, and my foot was wrapped in this massive swathe of bandages, loads of them. And I looked down, and there was loads of red stuff. And he said to the nurse who hadn't seen it yet, he said, have you seen his foot? His foot is really bad, because it was the worst operation to a foot they'd ever had, where the leg had not immediately had to come off. Mm-hmm. And so the nursing staff had only seen this in textbooks. So it was a thing, because they could actually see it for real and not just in a book. I said, no, I haven't, but I've heard all about it. She's taken the bandages off. He said, oh, it's wonderful. He said his leg's coming off in about 10 minutes. So he's doing his rounds, and she's peeling these bandages off. Hello, my name is whatever. How are you? I said, no, yeah, I'm fine, I'm fine. And she takes these bandages off, and she's looking at it like, and I thought, yeah, because I'd seen it. It was like, oh, it was not nice. Just hold it out. And she was looking at it, and I thought, yeah, you've never seen one like that before, I bet. And she said, doctor, can you come and see this? And he said, I've seen it. I was the surgeon who did all that. He said, no, you need to come and see this. And I've now got a vested interest as well, because, you know, what's going on down there? And he comes over and he swears really loudly. And I'm thinking, well, that's not good. That can't be a good thing. What the hell's going on down there? So now I'm piping up and saying, what, yeah, is it an alien claw? Is it a horse's hoof? What the hell is going on? You need to let me in on this. This is my damn foot. And he said, well, look for yourself. And Joe, it was as pink as a baby's bottom. The whole leg and foot was as pink as a baby's bum. I could have had my dinner off it. It was that clean. And he looked at me and looked at that and looked at me and looked at that and looked at the nurse and looked back at the foot, as if to say, I'm trying to get something to say. And he said, well, you know, Kevin, the human body is a wonderful thing sometimes. And left it at that. He said, oh, by the way, your amputation is cancelled because there's no need. All trace of sepsis gone. Whereas the night before, up to the shin. And he went, well, yeah, that's a weird one. Okay, that is strange. And then they said, well, it's a hollowed out cut. It's never going to heal because there's nothing, there's no matter in there to meet together. So they were going to fit it full of plastic and have some plastic surgery. And they said, it'll never heal. 2 weeks later, it starts to heal. And they're going, okay. And of course, by the side of my bed, I've got all these kinds of books on parapsychology, spirituality, weird stuff, woo-woo stuff. And they're looking at the books and looking at me and looking at the foot and looking at the books. And they said, well, there's something there, but it'll probably take years. It'll take maybe a decade for that to fill up. Took 3 weeks. Filled right up to the top.
Wow.
And they went, okay, you're weird. It does officially say on the hospital records, Mr. Milsom is officially very hard to kill. But the only one who understood me, Joe, was the hospital chaplain who came round. And she came in one day when I was recuperating in a separate hospital. And she was a medically trained person herself, a former nurse. And she read my notes. And she came in, she said, you know, she tapped on the door and said, is it all right if I come in? And I said, yeah. She said, are you religious? I said, no, not in the slightest. She said, do you believe in God? I said, oh, yes. Oh, absolutely. And she said, great. Can we talk about that for an hour? I said, yeah, absolutely. So she sat down and we talked about the unconditional healing power of God's love for an hour. And it was amazing. And she said, you should not, A, you shouldn't be here. B, you should have one leg less than you currently have. And C, if this isn't spiritual healing, then I don't know what is. Because there's no, I've seen your notes, you shouldn't be here. That injury to your foot, that wound was absolutely ridiculous. And that does not just go, sepsis doesn't just get up and go away.
Right.
It hangs in there and it goes up the body and it goes in there and you die. That's it. It's gone. You are gone. And I didn't tell her about the near-death experience. I thought I might be pushing the boundaries a little bit too much. I kind of wish I had now. I think she might have understood. But we talked about God's love. We talked about the healing, just the power of healing and the power of prayer. I told her that, you know, I had a lot of people praying for me. And she said, well, it just goes to show how the power of God's love. And I said, yeah, it does. Absolutely. And she was the only one who kind of got it. I think some of the nurses did. They'd seen some of the things before. The doctors are too cynical. But the nurses, yeah. And that was 6 years ago. And I still have a tiny, tiny, tiny hole where they went in with the operation. And I have to go and have that checked out every 2 weeks. But other than that, it's absolutely fine. It's not. I've not lost any more of my foot. I've not lost my leg. I certainly haven't lost my life. And it's made me realize, because I felt that donut in my bed, that was unconditional love. Yeah. And exactly what I felt during the NDE, especially when the master soul, whoever he was talking to me and communicating with me. That energy was, and I again, like yourself, I work as a writer. I've had 6 years. I can't get close, Joe. I can't get close. I can probably express it better in music than I could in words. Because the feelings, the energy, the power, the force of love is just mind-blowing. And we just have words, we just have simple words and phrases, and they do not do it justice. You can say unconditional love, but that is like unbelievable power. And I'd only felt something similar to that once before during a STE in 1986, but even then, that didn't really came kind of close, but not really. This was so personal to me because it was my life. It was my raison d'etre. It was why I'd chosen, and I'd let myself down. I'd been unkind to myself. I'd been unfair to myself. I put myself down. No one's gonna, I can't write music like David Bowie. So what's the point? I can't write like Charles Dickens. What's the point? Who's going to read my stuff? Who's going to listen to my music? And even when people would praise me for my creativity, I would, probably like yourself, I would find fault. Oh, that chord should have been a little bit longer. That note should have been a little bit, that should have been a sustained chord and not a seventh. So yeah, all that kind of stuff. So I'm looking for the faults every single time. Whilst other people say, no, it's great. It sounds lovely. No, I think that should be an F and not a D. I'm pretty sure. So I always put myself down. Since I've come back, I don't do that stuff anymore. I just don't do that. And my life has changed more in the last 6 years than probably in the last 40, because I've now got that mindset.
Wow.
I need to get stuff done. Also, when you nearly die, life is fragile. Life is temporary. And, you know, I come so close to being a hospital statistic.
Yeah.
Yeah, that could have been me. I could have been gone. And people died in the ward that I was in with less ailments than I had. And that makes me realize that what they told me was that my positivity was probably 50% of the healing. But obviously, I know that that goes on beyond into the healing as well. But that positivity, I've tried to continue on beyond the near-death experience since then, since 2018, and just make a difference and get out there and just make a difference to life and people and help and try to be this and that and just try to do all the stuff that I should have done 30 years ago and didn't. And that basically, for me, is the moral of my NDE. Life is short, life is fragile. You know, we need to get out there and do stuff. But life goes on. Life goes on. And part of me still goes now and again, I wonder what was beyond that door. Because my mother did a really good sales pitch on it.
Yeah. Right.
I can't wait. I
Yeah.
can't. But when the time is right, Joe, and not then.
Yeah. Well,
when the time is right.
I want to thank you so much for sharing that. That's, again, this is why I love not digging into looking up videos
Absolutely.
or hearing anything, because I want to hear it and feel it and understand what you went through and appreciate it. And what's interesting here, you know, you said a few things near the end of what you were saying there that, you know, so here we are living this life. You're you, I'm me, we're doing our thing. And like you said, life is fragile now. It's more, you see it as you want to make your mark the best you can while you're here. And so it's interesting how we can have fear around losing this life, but then but you also know that we go on. So, you know, again, it's interesting that I get to talk to all these people who've literally left this realm, realized how amazingly beautiful it is, and been like, wow, I want to experience that. Yet they still, many times, obviously they're here telling their story, they're coming back because they appreciate what they have here right now. And so I get this conflict constantly of, do I fear death? Do I fear losing Joe?
Yeah.
Or do I fear, or do I not fear it? Do I live? I don't know if I'm explaining this correctly.
No. You're making perfect sense. And you're actually repeating a conversation that I saw recently. And I think a part of the fear of that, and this is what this lady was saying, was that a part of the fear of dying was that she would lose her individuality, who she was. And so I'm going to go over there and I'm going to become part of a collective and I'm going to become part of God, but I'm not me anymore. What happened to me? So really, I do die. And I never saw it as that, because when I was there, and I said this to her, when I was there, I felt, Kevin, I'm still me. And I believe in group souls. I believe in a lot of things. And again, that connectivity to the divine, absolutely bang on. But I still believe that I'm going to be me. I may be part of a greater network of souls, and we may be connected to another group, and maybe it goes, I don't know. I'm not wise enough and smart enough to know that yet.
Yeah.
If ever. But I know that I retain my individuality. I'm still me. I've still got my creativity. I've still got my individual viewpoint. I've still got my intelligence. But what I found there, Joe, was that I was able, it's a little bit like Data for Star Trek. I was able to process information about 100 times, 1,000 times quicker than I could. Wow. So I was dealing with things, stimuli, and also then able to go and have a conversation about over here, and then look at that over there. What's that? That's lovely. This is going on. Oh, here comes somebody. Now we're having a different. So there was a lot going on, but I was able to adjust and adapt. I was able to process information at a much quicker speed. There were no barriers and no memory losses or whatever this has to put up with, especially as we get older. it was free. It was
Yeah.
totally fluid. It was totally, I mean, had I had a keyboard there, I could have written the best song ever, I'm sure.
Yeah, yeah, right, right.
Get me to that keyboard. I'm plugged into the mains here. Um, because there was nothing. And actually, and you would understand this as a musician, when you're in that, my wife used to call it, I can't remember what she used to call it, the zoning out period, I think, or something. I would be at my keyboard and I would get, oh, I need to go to the key, and I've got something coming in. And then for maybe an hour, I'm not there. Physically, I'm stood there, but she'd
Yeah.
go, I can see you're physically there, but you're not there. It must be like looking at a corpse, because I was somewhere, I'm in that zone, as you know.
Yes.
And when you get in that zone, you're in that zone with writing or music or whatever. And to me, that's the closest, that's the closest analogy I can get to where I was. It was that freedom of, and again, that individuality. I'm tuned into something here, and this wonderful master soul who came towards me, the connection with him was unbelievable.
Mm.
And the connection with everything in that room was unbelievable. But I'm still me. I'm still me. I could still go and write a song in my way. I could write a book in my way, or do some writing in my way. So I don't think we lose our individuality, which I think a lot of people, again, this is a theory I've heard coming in, that we become part of this collective consciousness, and therefore, we should reject the white light and all this stuff. But to me, there was no fear. The only fear was in me, in why hadn't I done this? And why had I been so fearful? Why had I been so afraid? Why had I not listened to my inner soul? Why had I not been braver? And that really ripped me apart. And I thought, oh, I'm never doing that again. I'm never doing that again. And that's why I feel I had to come back. I know I'd have gone through the door, toast, over, done with.
Did your mother feel individual as well? Like her soul
Oh,
was still
massively
intact?
so.
That was her, because she was gone, right? So like if we just dissolve into the collective, which
Oh, good point.
I don't really buy into that idea either. Like I understand it, and
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
think we are, but not in the, I think we're trying to interpret it in human form to understand what that means,
Absolutely that, Joe.
right?
Absolutely that.
And I'm
Absolutely.
wondering if when you've seen her come, if that should be, if anything, the verification that her
I'd never thought of
essence
it
is
like that.
still there. I'm
I'd
sorry?
never thought of it. Yeah, I'd never thought of that, but you're absolutely bang on. I would say she was maybe 40 years younger than when she passed. She was 84 when she passed. I say she looked in her 40s.
Yeah.
My stepfather looked a little bit younger as well. I'd say in his 50s, 60s. But the essence of who she was, and by God, was she a character? Was she an individual? That was what I'd never thought of that. Thank you. It's weird, isn't it? Even 6 years down the line, we can
Yeah.
I still replay it. And this is why I love going on to social network, because somebody will say something and I'll think, oh, no, oh yeah, I never thought of that. Yeah, the essence of who she was, Joe, very much my mother, very much Mary, very much, oh, this is who I am, this is my character. She wasn't pious, like angelic in any way, pious in any way, in that way. Welcome, my child. It was my mother, and
Yeah.
she spoke in her lovely West Country pirate accent, as I do, and she was bouncy. She was as she was when I was younger, when
Right.
I was much younger. And so there was nothing artificial or false about her, and yet. And yet, on the other flip side of the coin, there was connectivity between everything and everybody. Everybody was connected by something. I would say unconditional love, maybe. That would be my guess. I don't know. But everything was connected. Very much like in nature, everything was connected. And everything was a part of everything else. And I've had this experience before, but didn't feel so personal as the NDE. So the NDE was kind of what it was, but then also there was the healing aspects afterwards,
Yeah.
of which didn't make any sense.
Right.
Because medically, I was a nightmare. I didn't make any sense. I was an enigma. This should not have happened. I should have been dead, or like one leg down.
Yeah,
But I wasn't.
I've always thought about how many doctors out there have experienced and seen these types of things and
Mm.
tried to scientifically
Oh, yeah,
understand it, because I'm
yeah.
sure some people come back too and say, I just saw my great grandmother and my mother and I mean these
Yeah,
stories must come up a lot to
yeah,
doctors,
yeah.
and there are a few pioneers out there that have
Absolutely.
that have
Melvin Morse. Yeah.
appreciated it and come out and finally said, maybe there is something. Because when you become a doctor, it's very science. It's very
Oh,
this is
perfect.
it. This skin suit is the thing they
Cynical.
study.
Cynical.
And I can understand why. Because
Yeah,
their
absolutely.
job is to keep Humpty
Absolutely.
Dumpty together. And you know what I'm saying? Like, as long as everything's together, they've done their job. But the interesting thing with you is you come back and you have this experience of healing that doesn't make scientific
You
sense,
said
but spiritually, you probably knew.
spiritually.
I mean,
Yeah,
you decided, I'm going back because I still want to do some of this stuff. I still want
yeah,
to
yeah, yeah.
talk more. I want to, and
Massively.
that's creativity too. Just speaking, public speaking is creative.
Mm.
Writing is creative. So you're
Mm.
wanting to come back to do things that you weren't doing prior to that. The the one big question I always ask everybody, and it's kind of a silly question, but I feel like it makes sense, and it's, how real was it in comparison to you and I right now? How real did it feel? Did it feel dreamlike, or did it feel different from a dream, and how
That
so?
my first question, having this wonderful analytical, logical mind for 61 years, my first question was obviously, is that a dream? Oh my God, was that a dream? No. I My dreams are very random. I never remember them. I've had a couple of similar dreams in the past that were very realistic, and there's a difference. It's very, again, very hard to put into words. This was surreal. It was, I, it was not like any other dream that I've ever had. Nothing. And I can retain it 6 years on, every second of it. I can
Mm.
recall all, but it was how it left me emotionally. And then I come back to that downer, and now I'm kind of piecing this together. Hang on a minute, did I just see Jesus? Hang on a minute, was that my mother? What? Oh my God, I can remember everything she said to me. Oh my God, his energy was phenomenal. Oh my God, blah, blah, oh my God. And now I've got this wonderful care around me, this unconditional, this beautiful, unconditional healing love.
Mm.
No, it felt incredibly beyond real. Oh God. Again, words.
This is the one area that's what I mean, that the wording,
I can put it to music for you.
the English, yeah, yeah, music would help. So yeah, no, but I think I like the beyond real. I think the way I'm interpreting it from talking to a number of people asking that question is, so we've got like dream state, we have reality, physical
Mm,
reality, and then we
yeah,
have this other thing.
this
That's
other thing.
basically the only thing
So
that, because we don't experience this other thing, whatever that is, we can't put it here or here. It's neither. It's
it's, I would say it was a massive state of heightened awareness,
yeah.
which I've never had in a dream. Sometimes, if you're lucky, you might go, "Oh, I'm in a dream," and then wake up.
Hmm.
This was massive heightened awareness to a point that I've never personally experienced in this lifetime. I was aware of myself. I'd had that in an out of body experience in 1986. And it felt similar to that, where again, awareness was off the scale,
Hmm.
immeasurable. Um, but just such a personal experience. And again, what we were saying earlier, the individuality. And that's why I believe very firmly that individuality, you retain that. As I say, I'm a great believer in group souls. I think that we meet people for various reasons, and that we may be part of a greater collective or a greater plan, or this, that, and the other. I don't know. I don't have all the pieces of the puzzle. I don't really have any of them, but just ideals and thoughts. But I know that my individuality will retain. I will still be me. I will still be Kevin. I will
Hmm.
still be me. How I use that individuality, and at times I feel that individuality will connect with other individuals, and we then create a collective. We then, for a specific purpose. And again, I've had dreams like that where I've had dreams where I've gone over and I've experienced being with beings who I feel a connection with, but I don't know why. And maybe we're standing in a circle and this column of light will go up and somebody will say, that's healing love going out to the earth. And I'll go, oh, cool. And I know these people somehow, and I'm connected to them somehow. And our chests are all lighting up like ET somehow. And this column of light is amazing. And then I'll come back again. Well, I've had that with musical composition as well.
Yeah.
Where I've again felt that I've composed pieces that I've heard while I've been in an out-of-body state, then come back, run to the keyboard, and wrote them down, and try to recreate them as best I could. But again, that sense of awareness, Joe, was incredibly, incredibly heightened. Whereas in a dream, it tends to be kind of blunted, or it tends to be scrambled, or whatever.
Yeah.
And random things can happen. Nothing happened to you that didn't make any. There wasn't. Had it been in a real setting, or in a real setting, in a material setting, there's my mother, she's running towards me. There's my stepfather, he's walking towards me. I'm in a room that's very white. Wow. You know, they must use an awful lot, about 300 tins of paint on this room, because it's literally glowing. And now, then we have this figure come out, just in the white beard, wonderful eyes, amazing eyes. He just spoke with his eyes. Again, this figure, and people have said, is that Jesus? And I say, I don't know. If it is, then wow. Because the energy of that Christ spirit, again, words never, could never do that justice. But the power, oh my Lord, the power, the compassion, the empathy, the unconditional love, the support was beyond anything I've ever witnessed. It was absolutely incredible. And if that is Jesus, I'm fine with that. I'm great with that.
Right.
If he's exemplifying the Christ spirit or whatever, however it works, and again, I'm not smart enough to know that. But I think people want to, yes, you know, we like to be able to rationalize, don't we? We like to, you know, is that Jesus, yes or no?
Yeah.
And I say, I don't know. And they go, no, yeah, but is it? Or, yeah, no. But I don't know. I'm not smart enough to know that. Again, if it was, wow. Because we've got some massively wonderful things to look forward to when we pass, when the time is right. And I'm looking forward to it in some ways. I'm not afraid of death.
That was going to be one of the main questions too, near the end of the our talk here. Well, first of all, I was going to say, I refer to it as like Christ energy, right? Like we have this Jesus Christ image, and I have friends of all faiths, so I respect everyone's beliefs and religions and everything. So, but if we can just say Christ energy, then
I love that. Yeah,
you know, but it seems to be that there is this. That is a constant I see in a lot of these. It's not every NDE, but it seems to be. There is something there. So you experience that, and it's unlike anything you've experienced in your life. So that alone is a difference right there. The other thing I was going to say about dreams, sometimes I feel like we haven't completely untapped the dream state of human beings. You know, yes, we can put these things on our head and see that our brains are going, our brain is going crazy while we're in dreams. So the science person will say, well, see that, there you go. That's what it is. It's the brain. It's doing it. Or is our brains reacting to something that we're experiencing? So it's like, we don't know, right? We don't know that.
There's so much. I studied psychology and parapsychology, and there's so much about the brain. And I think as human beings, we like to think that we have all the answers. And that's where that ego comes in. And I've seen that in science, because I've tried to talk to people sometimes, and they are just so dismissive from the start. Well, of course, that's nonsense, because you know, somebody wrote a book in 1936, and he had a PhD, so therefore, you know. And I think sometimes we often get mixed up between faith and fact, and just because we believe something, and this can be religious or non-religious or scientific, just because, and I've dealt with this a lot with the academic community. Well, I believe this, so therefore it must be true. And I know 10 other people who believe this, so therefore it must be true. And I think, but at the end of the day, you've got a working theory. We don't know. If we knew the answers to the universe, we'd be exploring the outer reaches of the Milky Way by now.
Right.
We don't. We are, yes, we've come a long way in 100 years. We've come a massive way. But psychology is only just over 200 years old. And
Right.
we're still exploring the mind. We're still exploring the brain.
Right.
We didn't come
Yeah.
into about 1800. So, we're still finding parapsychology. We can't even, at the moment, in parapsychology, we can't even agree on what constitutes parapsychology and where it might come from and what it might involve and blah, 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 and blah, blah, blah. We can't even get the basic foundations right before we go exploring. And so many people agree on this and then disagree on that. And then it's literally like a cockfight. It's just, we're not in a stable place. But as you say, there are people out there who are going against their community and risking a lot of criticism in doing so in the scientific community by going, hang on, there's something, like Dr. Melvin Morse, for example,
Right.
and his pioneering stuff into NDEs in the 1970s. He got a load of flack for that. And I've got a lot of books written by scientists who have gone out there with the open-minded skepticism, which is all you need, and then gone, hang on, there is something. There is something. I might not be able to put, X equals this, but there's something.
Yeah.
Because our conventional science doesn't do it justice. We can't explain it using conventional science, so we have to use unconventional science.
Yes.
And hopefully, I think maybe when quantum mechanics and quantum physics becomes more understood, I think there may be a few answers lying there this century. But at the moment, we're scrabbling around in the dark.
I feel like you said it perfect when you said we're a couple hundred years old in the psychology realm of things. And it's like, look how old some of the planets are out there. Look how we're just getting started. So it's almost ignorant to think we have all the answers already, but at the same time, I know that's part of evolution. So I'm just
nature.
That's right. And so one of the beautiful things is that maybe at some point there's this coming together of the two things. And but and that's what I was referring to as the brain. And I think sometimes those dreams we have, because I've had spiritual dreams and I know the difference between those and the ones that are completely out of where I'm flying around with an elephant or something. And maybe that is another realm, who knows? But my point is
theory.
I think that's our humanistic way of maybe experiencing things that aren't our norm for a moment. And then the people who have the real NDEs, the real, they're like, oh no, it's the real deal. Like you're gone for a minute. And you're really seeing what we really are. And that's a game changer. And that's why, I look at the fact that I'm even doing this podcast and I'm talking to people and I don't even know how this even how this happened. I'm a musician. I just started doing it.
And it's fascinating. I talk to a lot of podcasters, and what I love is that each of them spread a little bit of light. And as I said before, those people who I'm not interested in impressing scientists. I'm not interested in impressing atheists or trying to convince anybody. I'm not a religious person. I don't want to convince you of anything, anybody. I'm not interested in creating a scientific formula. And if somebody has a PhD and they go, well, that doesn't fit it, that's fine. That's great. I don't care, really, at the end of the day. Because for me, and the stuff I do on Facebook and the stuff I've done on YouTube and talking to people is to help those people who are bereaved and grieving. That to me, if I was to get around to finally finishing my book on parapsychology, I would be targeting the people who have just lost a loved one. I'm not interested in, well, I've got 3 PhDs and you're talking at the back of your WhatsApp. I'm not interested in that. I don't care. But if you've lost your father, brother, mother, dog, hamster, and you are missing them, then, read this book, go and talk to that person over there, go and listen to Joe's podcast, because I think each of you spread light. And this is why I want to jump on the train as well and start my own up. Because to me, you can reach globally. And I've been working on a book for 10 years. And I thought, well, if I write a book on life after death, I might sell 50, 500. Great. And then I did a podcast and I hit 27,000 people.
Mhm.
And I thought, oh, this is the way forward. This is the new technology.
Right.
You can reach people all around the world. I don't have to go out and sell my book to you. I can get my message out there and this is why, I do these, because and you can see this in the comments as well. And to me, if you can change one person, if you can help one person, bingo, job done.
Right.
And you'll see that hopefully in the comments, and you will, all over YouTube. This has made a difference. I no longer fear death.
Mhm.
I no longer disbelieve the fact that I'm never going to, I don't believe that I won't see my father again. I know I'm going to see my father again because Joe's had this experience, Kevin has had this experience, somebody over here has had all these experiences, and therefore that gives me hope. And then I can go and read some books, and then I can go and do this, and then I can do. So, but the learning process, I've been in this learning process 5, 6, 7 years. I think I've just scratched the surface.
Right.
I think I just may have scratched the surface in a couple of places.
Yeah.
And there is. I thought I knew the paranormal. I've been researching it since the 1970s, and then I set up a blog once for it, and I'm thinking, I don't know that one. Who's that? Where'd that come from? It's sort of like I'm constantly learning, and of course, then we have new experiences coming in all the time. So it's like you're trying to keep on top of all this energy that's coming through. We have new. I mean, how many people every day have a near-death experience, have a STE, have an OBE, have this, that, or the other. So that evidence is constantly, and as the technology goes on, we now have EVPs, we have ITC, we have all this stuff happening where spirits appears are trying to communicate with us via technology. I've been into electronic voice phenomena for 30 odd years. I find it fascinating. I'm fascinated by ITC, instrumental transcommunication, where we can see spirits on electrical devices. And it seems that they're trying in some ways to get through to us.
Mhm.
But yeah, I just think we are on the cusp of a new age.
Yeah.
We're not there yet, and hopefully in our lifetimes, maybe.
Yeah.
Probably not in mine, but hopefully this century, I would like to go forward 100 years and see the textbooks then.
Right.
Looking
Yeah.
back at this period of time when people like yourself are trying to shine a light out there, and you will be seen as, oh, there's Joe. He was a true pioneer, which is how it should be. But I think we have to spread that message. We have to give that light out there, and we have to give that hope out there. And I'm not into spreading fear or anything like that. I saw what I saw, and I say what I saw, and that's it. All I felt was hope, love, nothing judgmental in any shape or form, only for myself. And then we have that weird after healing stuff that goes on where my leg doesn't have to get cut off.
And the fact that it completely, going back to the beginning of the conversation, that you completely changed. I mean, I'm not saying you were like a bad person before, now you're a good person now,
No.
but you had almost like a personality shift, in the sense of you no longer were holding back on the things from before. You now had this shift. Was that?
I would say I was a weaker person, especially in terms of myself. I've never had a lot of self-confidence, and that's the problem. I've never had an ego. I'm the other end of the, who wants to listen to me? All that kind of stuff. That's been me basically up to the age of 55. And therefore, the net result of that is that nothing gets done, or very little gets done. You might do a little bit and then go, oh, I overstepped the mark there. And you've done one thing, one step out of 12 to get into the end result. And you think, oh, that was a really good Monday. I did well there. But I was able to process and go back over the years and see all of these incidents. There are thousands of them, Joe, thousands of them, where I could have gone and got that record contract that was being offered me. But who's going to listen to me? I could have gone and got that, but who's going to listen to me? Who can listen to my music when it's David Bowie, the Rolling Stones, Elvis Presley? They're the real star. I'm nothing. And so, and unfortunately, that was my personality before. And since coming back, I really don't care now. I don't give a damn.
Right. one of the last questions I ask every single person. I just want you to tell me what comes from your heart. And it's as simple as just asking, why do you believe we're here?
Oh, I love, I love the easy ones. Why? You know, been asked that a lot, and I've contemplated that a lot. I love philosophy as well. I think part of that can be generic. I think part of that is also possibly the answer is very individual. I work in numerology as well, which focuses very heavily on the what is the meaning of life? Why are we here? All this stuff. Why? Um, I genuinely believe that I think generically we are here to learn, grow, and develop ourselves. I think we are here to become brighter souls. I think we're here to go. I see life as a school. I think that we're here to learn lessons that we can't learn in spirit, in heaven, or whatever you want to call it. We have to understand that, grief and things like that, lessons that we couldn't learn there. I think that we're just here to become wiser, smarter. For me, it's about growth and personal development. And I think that's where it then crosses into the individuality, because as you want, as you know, every NDE is very individual. No two are the same. There will be similarities, but no two are the same. None. They're very individual. Mine absolutely was. And I think that, we're just here to expand that individual self, whether that's as part of a later plan to go into a greater consciousness or become part of a greater consciousness or go into greater awareness. I'm not smart enough to answer that one. But I do believe that we retain the individuality, and I believe it's about us needing to understand that life is about growth, development. It is about change. I'm not the person I was when I was a teenager. I'm not the person I was 40 years ago. And I'm glad I'm not, because I was a mess. I was a complete mess. So we can see, I think if we can look back and see that development in life, oh, I've come this far. I've done really well. But as you will know as well, I was having this conversation last night. I know people maybe who've got to 85 and don't seem to have learned a damn thing. And I find that very, very sad. And I'm pleased with myself when I look back, especially the last 6 years, obviously. But even going back a little bit before that, I'm not that person anymore. I've grown, I've developed. I could have done this 10 years ago. No way. No way. I want to come anywhere near you. I'd have told you where to go. I mean, there's no way. I'm not going to. But now, so I can see, I've grown a little bit there. I've developed a little tiny bit. I've expanded. It's like going to the gym, isn't it? It's just a little bit of gentle exercise every day, pumping those weights or doing whatever. And we gradually begin to grow and it becomes easier. I think it is about learning a lot. I mean, learning and growth, it has to be about that. Numerology backs that up. Other things that I've studied back that up as well. I think it's about us becoming better, stronger people. Numerology tells us that we have a set list, if you like, of things that we hope to achieve in life. We probably won't achieve half of them, but that we hope to achieve in life. And if we can tick some of them and get them off the set list or play them on the set list, then we've done good, we've done well. But we also have divine free will. We can take the scenic route on everything, and that's a lot of what I've done. So, if that is having that freedom to be able to do things as we want. But for me, Joe, it is about growth and development. It is about expanding the consciousness, the awareness. I think physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually on all four planes. And coming through crap and still being hopeful, coming through awful, awful times and still having the power, the consciousness to go out there. Oh, who can I help today? What can I do today? And I think that kind of that growth is phenomenal. And we know that people go, as I said, we know that people go through life and don't appear to know anything at all, or learn anything, or grow anything. Right. They seem to revert back to being children.
Absolutely, I was going to say that can happen. That you can.
I feel sorry for them. I just feel sorry for them because I think you've had maybe 8 decades of life, and it doesn't look like you've ever left your bed. It doesn't
Right.
look like you've left your cot. Um, it's
Well, that goes into a
yeah,
whole other conversation around the possibility of reincarnation, all these types of
yes,
things. Like maybe we need to come try again. But what was beautiful about what you just said is growth, development, and change. And so many people get upset about the way their kids are behaving or the way this
mm,
person's behaving. And but we if we take a minute and think, oh, this is an opportunity for them to grow. Like that's
that's exactly where
if
I
our
am
idea is to
on my
change,
training.
right?
Absolutely,
Instead
yeah.
of like you're not going to have a child or have a person come out of the womb and just be like perfection like
No,
their
no,
whole
no, no, no.
life. Like that's the whole purpose, right? Is to grow and change and
It's
develop. And I
incredible.
think you said it
Yeah,
beautifully. Yeah. I really appreciate you being on. I
it's
do
an
want to,
absolute pleasure, Joe. Absolute pleasure.
yeah, one of the things I've been mentioning at the end of each episode too is just asking people to get involved in the comments, to talk,
Yes,
use their
yeah,
words, right? Get in the
please
comments,
do.
say how they
Yeah,
feel, put in
be
their
kind,
input. You know,
be kind. Yeah,
yeah,
be
I'm always saying
open.
to
But
people
yeah,
like subscribe and share and all these things, and that's kind of what we say, but it's more about that's really to get the message out. But the people who are watching, make a comment. Tell me how you actually feel.
they,
It's an
yeah,
open forum. If there is negativity, I usually it's not welcome if it's a bad
that's going to be a thing.
comment. But
But,
that's I try to
yeah,
get good conversation rolling. But
absolutely, because it's the most. You are the interview, or sorry, the interviewer. I'm the interviewee. But the most important people in this are the audience, the
yes,
ones who are watching. They are the most. The people who will listen to us yabbering on for 6 hours. But they are the ones who will go, oh, that kind of belt. Oh, that actually made a bit. Oh, I wonder if, and or oh, that takes a little bit of fear away of that.
right.
That makes me believe a little bit more that I'm going to see my beloved father again.
Mm,
And in which case, high five, because that job done, job done,
yes,
and that's how we
yes.
work on life beyond life. If we've hit one person, if we help one person, that is it. And yeah, that's how it is. I just think that's how it should be in life. But
Hmm.
it has to start small and build and grow. And I'm sure that you will build and grow. You said you were fully booked to September.
Yeah, yeah, it's booked.
That's
We're totally
fantastic.
booked. Yeah, it's really good.
That
Um,
is
l-
incredible.
I want to thank you though, Kevin. Thank you so much
Thank
for
you, sir.
being on the
Thank you.
show. And until next time,
My
we'll see you
pleasure.
next time on the Soul Inspired.